The rancher gave his land to a young Apache woman. At dawn, hundreds of warriors arrived. The sun had just begun its slow climb over the horizon when Samuel, the rancher, stepped out onto the porch of his old wooden house. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of wild sage and dry grass from the rolling hills that surrounded his land. For years, Samuel had lived alone, tending to his vast ranch that stretched as far as the eye could see. His hands were calloused from decades of hard work, his face lined with the kind of wrinkles that told stories of both struggle and quiet triumph. Samuel was not a man who spoke much about his feelings. He preferred action to words, and in the silence of the open land, he often found a sense of peace that towns and people could not offer. His ranch was a place of beauty and challenge. The fields were dotted with cattle grazing lazily under the morning sun, and horses moved gracefully along the hills, their hooves kicking up small clouds of dust. Samuel had always taken pride in his land. It was more than property. It was a home, a livelihood, and a reflection of his life's work. Yet, despite all he had built, he had always felt a quiet emptiness. He had no family of his own, no children to pass on the ranch to, and the townfolk often whispered that he was a man of wealth but little joy. One morning, as Samuel was inspecting the fences near the northern pasture, he saw a figure walking along the dusty trail that led to his property. It was a young Apache woman. She moved with confidence and grace, her steps sure and purposeful. Her eyes were dark and intelligent, scanning the land as though she could understand it better than anyone else. Her name was Naeli, and she was known among her people for her wisdom, courage, and kindness. She had come to Samuel's ranch seeking help, but also out of respect for the man she had heard about from the townspeople. Samuel watched her approach, leaning on the wooden gate. He had seen many travelers over the years, but something about Naeli caught his attention. There was a quiet strength in her, a calm determination that reminded him of the way the land itself stood firm against wind and rain. When she finally reached him, she greeted him politely, her voice steady and respectful. "Good morning, sir," she said. "I hope I am not disturbing you. I've heard of your kindness and your care for this land. I wish to speak with you about something important." Samuel studied her for a moment. He had always valued honesty and courage, and in her words he could sense both. "You are not disturbing me," he replied. "Walk with me. The morning is fine, and the land needs little company." They walked together along the fences, Naeli listening intently as Samuel spoke about the challenges of running a ranch. She asked questions, not out of curiosity alone, but because she wanted to understand the land and the life it demanded. Samuel found himself impressed by her attention to detail, the way her eyes followed his gestures, and the way her mind seemed to grasp ideas quickly. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light over the hills, Samuel felt a stirring in his heart that he had not felt in many years. He realized that Naeli was someone who could understand the value of this land, not just as a place to live, but as a living, breathing entity that needed care and respect. After a long silence, he spoke, surprising even himself with the words that came out of his mouth. "I want you to have it," he said, "all of it. This land, the ranch, the animals, it is yours if you wish to take it." Naeli stopped in her tracks, her eyes widening in shock. She had not expected such a gift. "Sir, I cannot accept such a thing," she stammered. "It is far too much. You have worked your entire life for this. I could never repay you." Samuel shook his head gently. "I do not expect repayment. I have no heirs, no family to pass it to. But I see in you a respect for this land that I have rarely seen. You would care for it, and that is worth more than anything money could buy." For a long moment, Naeli simply looked at him, her mind racing. She thought of her people, of her family, and of the responsibility that came with owning land. She had always dreamed of having a place to call her own, a place where she could live and work with honor. And yet, the weight of such a gift was immense. Finally, she nodded slowly. "If you truly wish it, sir, I will accept," she said softly. "But I promise to honor your trust and care for this land as you have." Samuel smiled, a rare warmth spreading across his face. He felt a sense of peace and satisfaction that he had never known before. "Then it is yours," he said. "From this day forward, it is yours to shape, to nurture, and to protect." Over the next few hours, they walked the land together. Samuel showed Naeli the best grazing areas for the cattle, the hidden springs that supplied fresh water, and the barns that held the tools and supplies needed to maintain the ranch. Naeli listened carefully, asking questions and taking notes in her mind. She could feel the history and care embedded in every fence post, every path, and every stone. It was as if the land itself was speaking to her, welcoming her into a new chapter of its story. As the sun climbed higher, Samuel and Naeli rested under a large oak tree near the center of the property. The breeze rustled through the leaves, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. Samuel spoke of his life, the challenges he had faced, and the satisfaction of building something lasting. Naeli shared stories of her people, of the wisdom they held, and of her desire to honor both her heritage and the trust placed in her. By the time the afternoon sun began to lower, a bond had formed between them. It was a bond not of family or friendship alone, but of mutual respect and understanding. Samuel saw in Naeli the qualities he valued most: courage, wisdom, and a deep respect for life. Naeli saw in Samuel a man who had devoted his life to something greater than himself, and who now entrusted her with the continuation of that legacy. As the day came to a close, Samuel prepared to leave Naeli alone with the land. He had made arrangements to stay in town for a few more days, ensuring that she had everything she needed to begin her work. "Remember," he said, "this land will test you. It is not easy to care for, but it will reward those who treat it with respect. Trust your instincts and do not be afraid to ask for help when you need it." Naeli nodded, her heart filled with determination. "I will honor your gift, sir. I promise to care for this land as if it were my own soul." As Samuel rode back toward the town, Naeli watched him go, feeling a mix of excitement and responsibility. She knew that taking over the ranch would not be easy. There would be challenges, skepticism from others, and the weight of proving herself. Yet she also knew that she had been given a rare opportunity, one that could shape not only her life but the lives of those around her. That night, under a sky filled with stars, Naeli walked through the fields, touching the soil, feeling the wind on her face, and listening to the sounds of the land. She felt a sense of connection, a quiet understanding that this land was now part of her story, just as she was becoming part of its story. For the first time in her life, she felt that she had a place to call her own, a place where courage, respect, and dedication could grow together, just like the land beneath her feet. And so, the first chapter of Naeli's journey as the keeper of the ranch began, not with grand celebrations or fanfare, but with quiet determination, respect for the past, and hope for the future. The ranch that Samuel had built with his hands and heart was now in her care, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that the land and its stories would guide her every step of the way. The first light of dawn stretched across the horizon, painting the hills in shades of gold and pink. Naeli stood near the edge of the northern pasture, her hands resting on the wooden fence as she watched the sun slowly rise. The air was still, almost too still, as if the land itself was holding its breath. The cattle stirred quietly, grazing without urgency, and the horses shifted in their stalls, sensing the change in the morning. Something in the atmosphere felt different, though Naeli could not yet place it. She had spent weeks learning the rhythms of the ranch, tending the animals, repairing fences, and making small improvements to the land Samuel had entrusted to her. Every day brought new challenges, yet she met them with patience and determination. She had grown stronger, more confident, and she began to feel that the ranch was truly hers, not just in ownership but in spirit. As she gazed across the fields, a movement caught her eye. At first, it was subtle, a flicker of motion on the distant hills. Naomi squinted, trying to focus. The shapes became clearer, and her heart began to race. Hundreds of figures were advancing along the ridge, moving with purpose and precision. Naomi's first thought was one of fear. She had heard stories of conflict, of misunderstandings between settlers and her people, and the sight of so many warriors approaching her land made her stomach tighten. She stepped back from the fence, her mind racing. The warriors were dressed in traditional clothing, with feathers and war paint visible even from a distance. Their horses moved in unison, and the rhythm of their approach echoed across the hills. Naomi could feel the weight of the moment pressing on her. She knew she needed to act carefully, for this encounter could determine not only her safety, but the future of the ranch she now called home. Samuel, who had returned early from town to check on the ranch, noticed the same movement. He quickly rode toward Naomi, his horse kicking up dust along the dirt path. "Naomi," he called, his voice steady but alert. "What is happening?" "They are coming," Naomi replied, her voice calm but firm. "My people, hundreds of them. I do not know if they come with anger or curiosity, but we must be ready." Samuel dismounted, his eyes scanning the approaching warriors. He had seen his share of travelers and visitors, but this was unlike anything he had experienced. The warriors carried themselves with a proud, commanding presence, and their numbers were far greater than he had anticipated. Yet he did not panic. He trusted Naomi and her judgment. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "Do not act hastily. They respect strength and honesty. Speak your truth, and they will hear you." Naomi nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She walked toward the center of the pasture, letting the horses and cattle move around her calmly. She raised her voice, not in anger but in clarity, so that the approaching warriors could hear her words. "I am Naomi," she called, her tone steady. "This land has been entrusted to me by Samuel, a man of honor. I do not take it for myself alone. I take it to care for it, to honor both him and my people. I am here with respect, and I ask that you hear me before you judge my actions." The warriors slowed their approach, their horses stopping a short distance away. Naomi could feel their eyes upon her, studying her every move. The leader, a tall man with feathers in his hair and a calm but powerful presence, stepped forward. He raised his hand in a gesture of pause, and the others followed. For a moment there was silence, only the wind moving through the grass and the soft clatter of hooves. The leader spoke, his voice deep and commanding. "Naomi, daughter of our people, why do you claim this land? Why do you accept what does not belong to you alone?" Naomi held her ground, her voice unwavering. "I claim it not for myself, but to honor Samuel, who trusted me with his land. I accept it with responsibility and respect. This land will not be mine to exploit or abuse. I will care for it as he has cared for it, and as our people have cared for the earth for generations." The leader studied her for a long moment. Naomi could feel the weight of his gaze, the way he measured her words, her intentions, and her courage. Around them, the other warriors remained still, their expressions a mix of curiosity and caution. Naomi did not flinch. She had prepared herself for this encounter, and she knew that honesty and respect would be her strongest weapons. Finally, the leader lowered his hand. "We have watched you, Naomi," he said. "We have seen your dedication, your courage, and your care for all that is around you. Many would take what they could, but you take only what you can honor. We will trust you, as Samuel has trusted you." A wave of relief passed through Naomi, though she remained composed. She knew that this was only the beginning, that earning their trust was not a single act but an ongoing responsibility. Samuel, standing beside her, allowed himself a small smile, proud of the young woman who had handled the situation with wisdom beyond her years. The warriors slowly approached, not as enemies but as allies. Naomi welcomed them, showing them the ranch and explaining how she had been caring for it in Samuel's absence. They asked questions, offered advice, and shared stories of their ancestors' connection to the land. Naomi listened intently, absorbing their wisdom and learning more about the traditions and history that she was now a part of. As the sun rose higher, the atmosphere shifted from tension to mutual respect. Naomi could see the pride in the warriors' eyes as they recognized her courage and integrity. She felt a deep connection to her people, a sense of belonging that went beyond the land itself. This moment was not just about ownership or permission. It was about trust, honor, and the understanding that true strength came from respect and responsibility. Samuel watched quietly, feeling a sense of peace he had not known in years. The land that he had worked so hard to protect was now in the hands of someone who would not only preserve it but elevate it. He realized that his gift to Naomi was more than a transfer of property. It was a bridge between cultures, a lesson in trust, and a symbol of hope for future generations. The rest of the morning was spent in conversation and shared labor. Naomi and the warriors repaired fences, tended to the animals, and prepared the land for the day's work. There was laughter, quiet reflection, and a sense of unity that had not existed before. Naomi felt a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that her role as caretaker of the ranch was deeply intertwined with the well-being of her people and the trust Samuel had placed in her. By midday, the warriors prepared to leave, returning to their homes with a new understanding of Naomi's intentions. The leader approached her one last time, his expression warm but serious. "Naomi, continue to honor this land as you have today. Your courage and honesty will guide you, and your people will stand with you." Naomi nodded, bowing her head in gratitude. "I will. I promise to care for this land, to honor your trust, and to ensure that it thrives for generations to come." As the warriors disappeared over the hills, Naomi stood in the center of the ranch, feeling a sense of accomplishment and determination. She knew that challenges lay ahead, but she also knew that she was not alone. The land, Samuel, and her people were all connected in this journey, guiding her every step of the way. The sun now fully illuminated the ranch, casting long shadows across the fields and highlighting the beauty of the land she had been entrusted with. Naomi took a deep breath, feeling the wind on her face and the warmth of the sun on her shoulders. She was ready for whatever came next, confident that with courage, respect, and determination, she could face any challenge and honor the gift that had been given to her. And so, as the day unfolded, Naomi continued her work with renewed purpose, knowing that the dawn that had once brought fear now marked the beginning of a stronger, wiser, and more connected life, one where the land, her people, and her own spirit could grow together in harmony. After the encounter with the warriors, the ranch seemed to breathe a new kind of life. Naomi walked through the fields early in the morning, observing the cattle and horses as they moved gracefully across the pastures. Everything appeared calm, yet she could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. The gift Samuel had entrusted to her was no small thing, and now that she had the recognition of her people, she understood that the expectations placed upon her were even higher. The days that followed were filled with work and learning. Naomi devoted herself fully to the ranch, rising before sunrise to tend to the animals, repair fences, and inspect the crops. Every task reminded her of the trust Samuel had placed in her, and every task also reminded her of her people and their connection to the land. She began to realize that caring for the ranch was not only about physical labor, it was about balance, patience, and understanding the rhythms of life itself. Despite her determination, challenges began to appear. The land was vast, and some areas were more difficult to manage than she had anticipated. Some of the cattle had wandered off, drawn by hidden streams and open fields, and she spent long hours tracking them down. The crops in one section of the field struggled to grow, despite her careful attention and effort. Small setbacks tested her patience, and sometimes she felt the heavy weight of doubt pressing in. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, Naomi sat on a hill overlooking the ranch. She watched the land she had come to love and thought about the enormous responsibility she carried. "Am I truly capable of this?" she asked herself quietly. "Can I honor Samuel's gift and my people's trust at the same time?" Her thoughts were interrupted by Samuel, who had come to visit and check on her progress. He dismounted his horse and walked up the hill to sit beside her. "It's a lot to take on," he said gently. "I know it feels overwhelming, but you have already shown that you are capable. You faced the warriors with courage, and you have cared for this land with respect. That counts for more than you realize." Naomi looked at him, her eyes reflecting both determination and uncertainty. "I want to do everything right," she said. "I want to honor this land and the trust everyone has given me. But sometimes it feels like there is so much to manage, and I fear I might fail." Samuel smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "The land will teach you, Naomi. Every challenge is a lesson, every mistake an opportunity to grow. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to care, to work hard, and to learn. That is enough." Naomi took a deep breath, absorbing his words. She realized that the struggles she faced were not signs of weakness, but opportunities to grow stronger. She felt a renewed sense of determination, knowing that patience, persistence, and respect for the land would guide her through even the most difficult times. The following days were filled with hard work. Naomi learned to manage the water supply more efficiently, using hidden streams and small canals to ensure that the crops received enough moisture. She repaired fences with care, preventing the cattle from wandering into unsafe areas. She even began to experiment with planting new crops, applying the knowledge she had learned from Samuel and the advice shared by her people. Each success, no matter how small, strengthened her confidence and deepened her connection to the land. Despite her progress, Naomi could not ignore the lessons she learned from the previous encounter with the warriors. She knew that earning trust was an ongoing process. She made it a point to communicate regularly with her people, visiting their communities and sharing her experiences on the ranch. She listened to their advice, learned from their wisdom, and incorporated their suggestions into her daily work. Through these exchanges, she felt a growing bond with her community, a sense of unity that reinforced her determination to succeed. One afternoon, while inspecting a section of the pasture that had been damaged by a recent storm, Naomi encountered a challenge that tested her in a new way. A small herd of cattle had broken through a weakened fence and wandered into a rocky area near the hills. Naomi knew that retrieving them would be dangerous, as the terrain was uneven and treacherous. She could have waited for assistance, but she felt a strong sense of responsibility to handle the situation herself. With careful planning, she guided the cattle one by one, using her knowledge of their behavior and the land to lead them safely back to the main pasture. Her hands were scratched, her clothes torn, and her body exhausted by the effort, yet she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. That evening, as she tended to the animals and repaired the fence, she realized that true strength was not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them with courage, patience, and determination. As the days passed, Naomi began to notice subtle changes in herself. She became more confident in her decisions, more patient with the animals and the land, and more attuned to the needs of her people. She started keeping a small journal, recording her daily tasks, observations, and reflections. In it, she wrote about the lessons she learned from each challenge, the successes she achieved, and the moments of doubt she overcame. This journal became a symbol of her growth, a reminder that every step forward, no matter how small, was part of a larger journey. One evening, while tending to the crops near the northern edge of the ranch, Nayeli noticed a small bird struggling in the tall grass. Its wing appeared injured, and it could not fly. She gently picked it up, cradling it in her hands, and carried it back to the house. With care and attention, she nursed the bird back to health, feeding it and creating a safe space for it to recover. When the bird finally took flight again, Nayeli felt a quiet joy and pride. She realized that caring for the land also meant caring for all living creatures upon it, no matter how small. Her connection to the ranch grew stronger with each passing day. She learned to anticipate the needs of the animals, predict changes in the weather, and adapt her work accordingly. She discovered hidden springs that provided fresh water, identified areas where the soil was fertile, and began planting small gardens to grow vegetables and herbs. Every success reinforced her confidence and strengthened her bond with the land. Yet, even as she grew stronger, Nayeli remained humble. She understood that the land had its own wisdom, that it demanded respect, patience, and careful attention. She continued to seek guidance from Samuel, her people, and the land itself. She listened to the wind, the rustling of the grass, and the sounds of the animals, learning to interpret their messages and respond with care. Through these experiences, Nayeli began to see the ranch not just as a place of work, but as a living entity with its own needs, rhythms, and lessons. She realized that caring for it required more than physical labor. It required understanding, empathy, and a deep connection to the life it sustained. Each day brought new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities to grow. By the time the first month passed since the warrior's arrival, Nayeli had transformed. She was no longer just a young woman entrusted with a gift. She was a capable, confident caretaker of the land. Her respect for Samuel's trust, her people's traditions, and the life around her guided her every action. She had learned that true strength came from patience, humility, and perseverance, and that growth often arose from facing challenges rather than avoiding them. One evening, as the sun set and cast a golden glow across the fields, Nayeli stood on a hill overlooking the ranch. She reflected on the journey she had undertaken, the lessons she had learned, and the strength she had discovered within herself. The land, once a source of fear and uncertainty, had become a source of purpose, pride, and connection. She understood that the path ahead would not always be easy, but she felt ready to face whatever challenges came her way. As the stars began to appear in the night sky, Nayeli felt a deep sense of peace. She had grown not only as a caretaker of the land, but as a person of courage, wisdom, and integrity. The struggles she had faced, the lessons she had learned, and the trust she had earned from her people had shaped her into someone capable of honoring the gift she had been given. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she also knew that she had the strength, determination, and guidance to continue. And so, under the quiet glow of the stars, Nayeli embraced the responsibility and honor of the ranch. She had faced challenges, learned from them, and grown stronger. She had earned the trust of her people and had proven to herself that she could rise to any occasion. The land was no longer just a gift. It was a reflection of her own courage, patience, and dedication, a living testament to the journey she had undertaken and the life she was building for the future. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting a soft golden light across the fields. Nayeli stood at the edge of the northern pasture, feeling the cool breeze on her face. The land, which had once seemed so vast and overwhelming, now felt familiar, almost like a part of her. Every fence, every field, every animal had become intertwined with her daily life, and she felt a deep sense of pride and responsibility. The ranch was no longer just a gift from Samuel. It was her home, her purpose, and a testament to all the hard work and care she had poured into it. Over the weeks and months, the ranch had transformed under Nayeli's guidance. Fields that had once struggled to grow now flourished with crops, and the cattle and horses moved freely and safely through well-maintained pastures. She had repaired old fences, planted gardens, and even begun experimenting with new ways to conserve water and nourish the soil. Her knowledge of the land had grown, and her confidence had blossomed. Every challenge she had faced, from chasing lost cattle to tending to injured animals, had strengthened her, teaching her patience, courage, and humility. The community around her began to notice the change as well. Townspeople who had once been skeptical of Samuel's decision now approached Nayeli with respect and curiosity. Some offered advice or help, while others simply observed, quietly impressed by her dedication and skill. Nayeli welcomed them, always listening, learning, and sharing her knowledge. She understood that caring for the ranch was not only about the land itself, but also about building relationships and trust with the people around her. Her people, the Apache warriors who had arrived that dawn months ago, continued to support her in small and meaningful ways. They visited to offer advice on managing the land, shared knowledge of traditional planting techniques, and helped with difficult tasks that required many hands. Nayeli valued their guidance, seeing it as a bridge between her new responsibilities and the wisdom of her heritage. Together, they created a sense of unity, blending the traditions of her people with the practical skills Samuel had taught her. One morning, as she walked along the creek that ran through the ranch, Nayeli noticed the water level had risen slightly after a recent rain. The soil along the banks was soft and fertile, perfect for planting. She began clearing small patches, carefully preparing the ground for new crops. The process was slow and tiring, but she found satisfaction in each careful movement, knowing that every seed she planted would grow strong under her care. As she worked, she reflected on the journey she had undertaken. The land had tested her in countless ways, yet each challenge had strengthened her resolve and deepened her connection to it. Samuel arrived that afternoon, riding slowly along the dirt path that led to the creek. He dismounted and approached Nayeli with a warm smile. "The ranch has never looked better," he said, surveying the fields and animals around them. "You have done more than I could have imagined, Nayeli. I am proud of what you have accomplished." Nayeli smiled, brushing dirt from her hands. "I could not have done it alone, Samuel," she said. "The land teaches us if we listen, and my people have guided me. I have learned so much, and there is still more to learn, but I feel ready for whatever comes next." Samuel nodded. "And that is exactly what matters. The land is more than property, it is life, and life grows with care, patience, and respect. You have shown all of these and more." As the afternoon continued, Nayeli walked through the ranch, checking on her animals and tending to the fields. Each task reminded her of the growth she had experienced, both as a caretaker and as a person. The ranch was thriving because she had learned to work with it, rather than against it. She understood the land's needs, its patterns, and its moods. She knew which areas needed extra care, which crops required more attention, and how to balance work with patience. The harmony she felt with the land reflected the harmony she had cultivated within herself. News of Nayeli's success spread beyond the ranch. Neighbors, travelers, and nearby communities came to visit, curious to see the young woman who had earned the trust of both Samuel and her people. Nayeli welcomed them, sharing stories of her journey, the lessons she had learned, and the wisdom of the land. She spoke of patience, courage, and respect, emphasizing that caring for the earth was a responsibility that extended beyond ownership. Her words inspired others, creating a ripple of understanding and appreciation for the balance between people and nature. One day, a group of children from the nearby town approached the ranch, curious to see the fields and animals. Nayeli guided them through the pasture, showing them how she cared for the horses, cattle, and gardens. She taught them how to plant seeds, tend to crops, and respect the land. The children listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder, and they left with a newfound respect for the earth and the effort it took to nurture it. Nayeli realized that this was another way her work could leave a lasting impact, by teaching the next generation the value of care, responsibility, and connection. The seasons began to change, and with each passing month, Nayeli's bond with the ranch deepened. She learned to anticipate the shifts in weather, to plan for droughts or storms, and to adapt her work accordingly. The land, once intimidating and vast, now felt like an extension of herself, a living entity that responded to her care and attention. She celebrated small victories, the first bloom of spring flowers, the successful growth of new crops, the safe arrival of new calves. Each moment reinforced her belief that dedication and respect could transform not only the land, but also the life lived upon it. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Samuel joined Nayeli on the porch of the house. They sat quietly, listening to the sounds of the ranch, the gentle rustle of leaves, the soft murmur of the creek, the lowing of cattle. The silence was comforting, filled with the life they had nurtured together. Samuel looked at Nayeli, his eyes reflecting pride and satisfaction. "You have done more than I ever imagined possible," he said softly. "This ranch is alive because of you. You have honored the gift, your people, and the land itself. I could not be prouder." Nayeli smiled, feeling a deep warmth in her chest. "It is because of everything I have learned from you and from my people," she replied. "And because the land itself teaches us when we are willing to listen." As night fell, the ranch glowed under the light of the moon. Nayeli walked through the fields, feeling the cool grass beneath her feet. She paused near the creek, watching the water reflect the stars above. In that quiet moment, she understood that her journey was not just about owning land, but about creating harmony between herself, the land, the animals, and her people. She realized that the legacy she was building was not measured in acres or crops, but in trust, respect, and the life she nurtured around her. Over time, Nayeli became a respected leader in both the town and her community. She continued to care for the ranch with diligence and love, ensuring that every creature, every plant, and every corner of the land thrived. She maintained strong connections with her people, listening to their wisdom and sharing her knowledge in return. The ranch became a place of learning, cooperation, and harmony, a symbol of what could be achieved when courage, respect, and dedication guided one's actions. Years later, when Nayeli looked back on the moment Samuel had given her the ranch, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. The gift had been more than land. It had been an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to create a life rooted in purpose and care. She had faced challenges, earned trust, and discovered strengths she never knew she possessed. And through it all, she had remained true to her values, honoring both the land and the people who had supported her journey. The ranch thrived, not because of wealth or power, but because of the harmony and dedication that Nayeli had cultivated. Visitors continued to come, inspired by her story and the life she had built. Children learned to plant seeds with care, neighbors learned to respect the rhythms of the land, and Samuel watched proudly from afar, knowing that his gift had been placed in the hands of someone truly worthy. And so, the ranch became a living testament to courage, patience, and respect. Nayeli had transformed it into a place where life could flourish, where lessons were shared, and where harmony between people and nature was celebrated. Her journey had been challenging, yet it had forged a legacy that would endure for generations. The dawn that once brought uncertainty and fear had now become a symbol of hope, growth, and the enduring power of trust and dedication. As she stood on the hill overlooking the fields, Nayeli felt the gentle wind on her face, the rustle of grass beneath her feet, and the quiet sounds of life all around her. She smiled, knowing that she had not only cared for the land but had become part of its story. The ranch, once a gift, was now her home, her purpose, and her legacy, a shining example of what could be achieved when courage, respect, and love guide every step of the journey.